Hello, everybody, and welcome to Atheist Sunday School, your one-stop shop for everything Atheist, Sunday, and school. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Today we are covering Saint Matthew, chapters 4 through 7, with Landon Noll.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your time zone latitude, and Happy New Year from your friendly secular astronomer.
Absolutely.
How are you folks doing?
Happy New Year. How is this time around the sun going to go?
Yes, hopefully this time will be different, which is likely better.
Let's hope.
Yeah. Did you enjoy the astrology book that we read a little while back?
Did you like the treatise of Shem?
That's very, it was very woo-woo, yes.
It was certainly something.
It is special. And
yes. And how are you folks for this New Year so far?
I mean,
decent,
not bad. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
So we have this slightly newer than the previous testament that we're going to start reading.
Yeah, by a few hundred years. Yeah,
yeah,
a little newer.
Only slightly newer. And I did watch your beginning of the Gospels, and of course that horrid first chapter of Matthew with all those lineage things, which seems to be, isn't there some controversies around that actual lineage of stuff, like some gaps that they think they kind of filled in?
I'm not sure about the gaps, but the difficult thing, like theologically speaking, would be that the lineage goes down through Mary?
No, it went down through Joseph.
Through Joseph, and it doesn't go through Mary. And Joseph is not Jesus's father, which means that Jesus is not of the house of David.
Yeah, which is where you get some interesting Christological things. So it's I guess one of the weirder portions is I think that there were mentions of like there were changes in some of the names to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
there was one that was definitely changed.
Yeah, there was Asaph, and then there was another one.
Yeah.
Who was the other one? Hold on, I got it. It's in here.
You can do it.
And Amos.
Okay.
It was Asaph and Amos.
Very well.
Great. So yeah, that's the difficulty there, and of course there was the star pausing over their house, which it wouldn't have to be paused for a very long time. Given that it's like maybe an hour's walk, they would have to do it from Jerusalem.
Right. It wouldn't be a very long walk, and we were talking about the star quite a bit because it was an interesting thing. Like, what are they interpreting this thing as?
And the historicity is all messed up. With King, was it Herod?
Well, okay. So the issue with Herod and you know which king is in place, it really depends on which account you take. So
I hate to stop you, but since Ellis is here and I'm going to say hi, would you like to spin the wheel?
Oh yeah,
that's a good idea. We should spin the wheel.
We should spinny
wheelie,
spin the wheel.
I'm going to do it.
Let's see it spinning
Round and round.
There it goes. It's spinning.
It spins right round, baby.
Landon!
It's
Landon.
Of course it's Landon.
Yay,
all right.
I finally win a good t-shirt.
And you will receive one.
Not weighted at all. It's not rigged.
No, it's been forever since it's been Landon, and now we have to make a new t-shirt finally. That's
we
the deal.
gotta make a new shirt.
Let's make one.
You gotta think about that new t-shirt thing you're going to do.
Well, have we sent Landon one of our OG Milwaukee Atheist t-shirts?
Do we have any more of those left?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Where?
By the table over there.
Oh, okay.
It's been there for a while. I think there's definitely some left.
Well, thank you. As I say, but folks, you could, if you join at what's the level? Patreon level at.
For the t-shirt, it's $10. Yeah. So if you're a patron of $10 or more, you can enter it into a t-shirt giveaway every month.
Yeah, if you become a patron like the day before we do the first Sunday of the month show,
Yeah.
and you spend $10, and then immediately afterwards you revoke your patronage, then
Aw.
you have a chance of getting a T-shirt for
Right now,
50%
if you did
off.
that, it would be 1 in 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
All right.
odds.
So yeah, we are now continuing the story of Jesus, at least according to Matthew. But as you were saying before about
King Herod. So like the timeline, it doesn't match up with 0 AD.
Well, there's no
Right.
0.
Well,
Yeah.
1.
1, yeah.
1. Yeah. King Herod and the order to kill the male children doesn't happen under King Herod in the historical record. It
Right.
happens later, more towards 6 AD. Right?
Well, the thing is, okay, so we have 2 different accounts in the Gospels. So there is the one with Herod, and Herod died in 4 BCE. So Jesus would have had to have been born before then, right?
Mhm.
But in Luke's narrative, you get the historical reference there. His name pops up in a couple different ways. It's either Quirinius or Cyrenius, who was put in his position in 6 CE. So you have it can't be both. It literally cannot be both.
Mhm.
That's an actual contradiction. And you see like on like the American Atheist website, there's like this list of biblical contradictions, and the thing is, most of them aren't actually contradictions. This is one that is an actual contradiction. So I think, a murder, a slaughter of this kind would probably be recorded by multiple people.
Mhm.
I'm guessing.
Now they all died.
Like this is mass execution of children.
Yikes.
So you would think we'd have something more for it. So I think it's not even clear that kind of a thing happened. But from the other gospel, it is a differing account
Mhm.
in terms of the date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, all that star stuff, the star thing. One of the problems that we have is that astrology stuff tends to have sort of fanciful names of something. So they talk about star overhead or star rising. There's sort of these astrological type things that doesn't necessarily mean that there was a drone with a light going beep 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 beep.
Right.
And they're what people have done, given the uncertainty about the year that it was in, actual year, is they've gone through and they talked about this conjunction between these two between a star and a planet, or between 2 planets, or a comet, or so forth. All those things fail to sort of note this sort of rising, hovering, hanging overhead type of thing that the book describes. So it is interesting, but still, we're definitely getting into the next set, which I will start see Jesus
Also-
doing things particularly.
Also, we were talking about like last week. We were talking about how like is this star meant to be like an angel as an also possible interpretation? And I don't remember if we had it in any of the commentaries, the actual language that was used.
Mm-hmm.
But I now because Landon is just so fantastic, we have with us a Greek New Testament.
Oh, wow.
It is
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. So thank you, Landon. This is amazing that we have this now. So if we need to check the Greek, we have it right here, which is
Excellent.
It's great.
Yeah.
And so is it, by the way, broken up into the same sort of traditional chapters and verses as the other testaments?
It is, yes.
And is it modern Greek or Greek of that time?
This is Koine Greek, so it's the Greek of the time.
So it would have been likely closer to the actual text that was written, because we presume these original books were written in Greek. Is that a presumption?
Yes. Every book in the New Testament was originally written in Greek.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Speaking of books, I have the King James Version of the Bible.
I have the English Standard Version of the Bible.
Landon, what do you have?
I have the New American Standard Bible, a reference edition, A.J. Holman Company, and probably Copyright God if God's alive, is not 75 years after his death. But it's also Copyright Lockman Foundation. Apparently, they have been ceded the copyright.
Wonderful. We also have the Jewish Annotated New Testament and the NIV Study Bible.
We also have, of course, as already mentioned, the Greek New Testament, as well as a textual guide to the Greek New Testament from Roger L. Omenson. And I should note that the Greek New Testament here was worked on by both Kurt and Barbara Allen, which are, they're very famous for publishing very critical editions of New Testament texts. And like they have like these huge, I think I actually have one at home. They have these huge compilations of manuscripts, like their actual names and what they contain on them, like which chapters and verses and all that.
And by critical, you don't mean that they are poking fun at it or being nasty. You're talking about literary criticism, that is the thing of the details of the textual stuff and its history and that sort of thing.
Yeah, specifically textual criticism. So they have access to all these manuscripts, and then as New Testament critics, their job is to try to figure out what is the most likely original reading.
Yes. We also have Eerdman's commentary on the Bible.
We do. We have from the Hermenia series, from Ulrich Luz, his commentary on Matthew 1 through 7. Also, if you can barely hear Landon, we can probably turn him up a bit.
I can also help too.
All right.
And I did turn it up on the laptop at least. So that's something. Hopefully it helps a bit.
Yeah. We also have the New King James.
We do. That's right. We also have the text of the New Testament. This is from Bruce Metzger, very famous textual critic, and he also helped with the Greek New Testament that we have here.
Yeah, we also have the Historical Jesus in Context.
We
got
do.
stuff.
We do. We got lots of stuff here.
Did you mention the New Testament survey?
We're not using it
We're not
today.
using it, but we do have it.
We have the Books of Enoch, complete edition. We have...
Okay, we have plenty of books still left on this table.
Oxford Companion of the Bible.
Why are we talking about it?
No. Look how deep it is under pseudepigrapha.
Yeah.
I will also point out, I guess, in this, we're doing chapters 4 through 7. I have lots of these verses underlined in my Bible back when it was underlining stuff.
Important things.
There. Well, as I say, I had in the Bible, I had, for example, this little, bar here where I could underline it properly, and not have wiggly lines and so forth. So
very nice metal bar.
You'll find, see, in the leather thing here for stuff, so that you'll find there'll be lots of these little, underlying bits, just as a reference for I paid attention to something.
Yes.
Back in my previous days.
So this chapter...
Back in the dark times.
Yes.
This chapter that we're about to read has Christ's temptation in the wilderness.
Yep, we got Satan popping up.
Ooh.
How exciting.
And I wonder what pseudepigraphal Satan this Satan is going to be most like, because we already know is probably nothing like Old Testament Satan.
No, nothing like that one. Although I would say, which was the one with it had Elijah and Enoch fighting Satan?
That was the
Apocalypse of Elijah? Was that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so when we were reading that book, I think it was that one. Yeah, they were they were fighting. They had this. It was a 2-on-1 handicap match.
It was like also kind of like an anime fight.
It was like an anime fight. Yeah.
It was
pretty
like
straight up.
Devilman.
Yes, like exactly that fight scene at the end.
Yeah.
So that was so I think it'll be a lot like that, although it gets even closer to that portrayal once we get to Revelation. So
Excellent. Well, then why don't we hop into it here?
great.
Yeah, so let's go. Chapter 4 from the KJV. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungered. This wording.
Yeah, I know. And
Then became hungry. I mean, come on.
yeah, and he fasted 40 days and 40 nights. Afterward, he was hungry.
Yeah.
Now, fasting doesn't mean that you were completely without food, although some people say that usually it is. Usually it's can be also a reduction of food or dieting, but people like to talk about it being completely with absence of food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 40 days and 40 nights. This is like Noah, Moses, the wilderness period, Elijah, etc.
Yeah, so it really takes over that the Moses narrative there. Although I should note that in some of the other gospels, instead of being tempted after this 40-day period, he's tempted during.
Mm. And when the tempter came to him, he said, "If thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread." But he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God."
Now, I have to say, okay, so he says, yeah, turn these stone into bread. What's so evil about that? How is that a temptation thing? Why is that a bad thing?
So are we talking about I think, what was it, verse 3 there?
Verse 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you are the Son of God, say that these stones become loaves of bread. So Jesus' hunger becomes the occasion for the first temptation, which in Matthew begins after the 40 day of fasting. The tempter comes to Jesus and speaks to him about his divine sonship that the heavenly voice has announced to him, when he says, "If you are the Son of God," the devil is not questioning Jesus. I think he's trying to put him to the test. So he challenges him to perform a spectacular, not messianic miracle. Jesus refuses to perform a miracle that is not commanded by God. By expanding the quotation from Deuteronomy 8:3, Matthew lets us understand that he is familiar with the Old Testament context. So I don't know if you want to look at Deuteronomy 8:3, but that's a thing that you guys could do. Even if Jesus' temptation is a different temptation. Deuteronomy 8:2-5 speaks of the way God led the nation of Israel during 40 years in the wilderness by testing whether it would keep his commandments. He did so in order to train it like a son.
Deuteronomy 8:3, and he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man do not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the NIV commentary says that it's substantial because he refuses to use supernatural powers in order to satisfy his own needs.
Yeah, considering he's fasting.
Yeah.
I guess that's something for there. But still, and by the way, it's interesting it said that he fasted 40 days and nights and then became hungry. Like somehow, if you're not eating anything for 40 days and 40 nights, then after 40 days you start to become a little bit peckish.
Well, Landon, as we're all aware, we don't know much about his upbringing, and he was a very chubby child.
Yeah.
This is when he lost all that fat.
Right.
All right. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and setteth him on the pinnacle of the temple, and saith unto him, If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down. For it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God.
So that should be a direct quotation then, or it should be some kind of quotation because he's saying it is written.
An alternate word for tempt in my edition is put to the test.
Mm-hmm. Right, as in Deuteronomy 6:16 commands you not to test the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the second temptation, right? Where he would get a bunch of followers by demonstrating his magic powers to the public. But he refuses to do so here, even though later on in the story he demonstrates his magic powers to people all the time. So
Well, he's commanded by God to do that.
And also, if Jesus is God, then wouldn't him commanding himself to do anything be God commanding him to do something?
Yes, but he refused to command himself.
This is how you get. This is part of the reason you get so many Christologies.
Right, because it doesn't make sense.
That really didn't add up, did it? I said it out loud, and then I was like, no, that can't be that.
Again, the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then Jesus said unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve.
Yeah, Jesus refuses him with a word from Deuteronomy 6:13.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I guess the point in the story is to demonstrate Jesus's knowledge of the scriptures, but also like his refusal to fall into these temptations.
Yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold!
Behold!
Angels came and ministered unto him.
Yeah, so with the concluding note that the devil left him and the angels ministered to him, this perspective is already obliquely suggested, the thing that we talked about earlier. So with this section, the temptation of Jesus, here's a note here about the origin, at least according to Luz. The pericope is one of the younger formations in the saying source. In my judgment, it originated relatively late without direct dependence on the Markan temptation story. It is thus a creation of the church. Jesus himself spoke of his victory over Satan in a completely different context than Luke. Our text is no pictorial depiction of Jesus' own experience, nor is it a report of a vision. It is designed rather to portray real events in mythical language. On the one hand, a presupposition of its origin is the widespread topos of the temptation of important religious figures. So we have Buddha, Zarathustra, Heracles. Decisive, on the other hand, are the community's look back at Jesus, especially its belief that the earthly Jesus was already God's son, Jesus' refusal to perform heavenly signs, and his conviction that Satan has already been dethroned by Jesus' activity. Contemporary experiences may also have influenced the formations. The text's formal conciseness suggests that it has been conceived in a single stroke. The twice-used Son of God title may show that from the beginning it was connected to the story of the baptism, and that it interpreted Jesus' divine sonship, proclaimed there based on the memory of the life of Jesus and the community's faith.
Now, the NIV commentary says, because he was God, he did not sin in any way, whether by actions or words or inner desire, 2 Corinthians 5:21, Hebrews 7:26, 1 Peter 2:22. Yet, Jesus' temptation was real, not merely symbolic. He was, quote, tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin, Hebrews 4:15. He was confronted by the tempter with a real opportunity to sin. Although Jesus was the Son of God, he defeated Satan by using the power of his Spirit, which is the Word of God, Ephesians 6:17.
Yeah, although in here, I don't know if, he's certainly using his will.
And everything that he references is from Deuteronomy.
It does look like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, apparently he also has a quotation here from Psalms as well.
Mm-hmm. Also, when he goes to the highest point on the temple, the temple, including the entire temple area, had been rebuilt by Herod. The courtyard had been greatly enlarged to about 330 by 500 yards. To accomplish this, a huge platform had been erected to compensate for this sharp falling off of land to the southeast. An enormous retaining wall made of massive stones was built to support the platform. On the platform stood the temple building with porches and courtyards flanked by colonnades. So,
but Luz does note that it's not really important where it's located, at least for the purposes of this narrative.
Yeah. So it says that the angels came and began to minister him. Do you suppose they fed him? Is that what they mean by ministered in verse 11? Or is there any...
or just like give glory unto him or something? Well, it says ministered in yours.
yeah.
What does the Greek say?
I can also check that. It says that they served him. At least according to this. What was that? 11? And let's see.
We're seeing.
Yeah. So this is verse 11. Just checking if there's any textual note on there.
So while you're doing that, is my audio better? Some people were saying that I'm a bit faint.
I turned it up a bit.
I think it's probably okay considering they didn't say anything about it before.
Yeah. Some other people were in the previous were saying it, and so.
Yeah, audience, tell us, can you hear Landon?
Yes. Am I being? I mean, except when I shout, "Behold."
Right.
I mean, I'm sure they definitely hear you when you do that.
I mean, I see you on the board, man. You're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Said audio good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, producer.
So after verse 11, which promptly leaves off with angels ministering to him and doesn't explain any of it. I guess the point would be that he's like worthy of having angels come to him.
That would make sense, yeah.
But after this, we go into a completely different section of the chapter, where he starts doing things in public. Right? So, besides being baptized, which was in public.
Yeah, so now he's in Galilee, apparently.
Right. Now, when Jesus had heard that John was cast into prison, he departed into Galilee. And leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast in the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali. Now,
yeah, so
Capernaum.
these places are listed in Isaiah 9, 1 through 2. That's what it looks like.
Well, not Capernaum. According to the NIV, it says Capernaum is not mentioned in the Old Testament. It was evidently a sizable town in Jesus' day. Peter's house there became Jesus' base of operations during his extended ministry in Galilee. 5th century basilica now stands over the supposed site of Peter's house, and a 4th century synagogue is located a short distance from it.
But the other places here, so from Isaiah 9, 1 through 2, are the territory of the tribe of Naphtali, next to the western shore of the Sea of Galilee, Zebulun, whose territory was west of them, in the middle of the valley of Lower Galilee, the way of the sea on the shore of the Mediterranean, and Gilead across the Jordan, south of the Sea of Galilee.
Mm. All right, let me continue on. That it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people which sat in darkness saw a great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. What a sentence.
Yeah, so I think, oh my God, I should have, what I should have done, I think I actually had to translate this for an assignment once, this specific verse. I should have brought my translation, but I did not.
Yeah. So in mine it says that that proved out verse 16 says the people who were sitting in darkness saw a great light. To those who were sitting in the land and the shadow of death, upon them a light dawned.
Mm. Now that makes more sense than the KJV.
How could that be? Because I thought KJV was.
This is another messianic prophecy from Isaiah. Jesus spent most of his public ministry in the area of Zebulun and Naphtali, which is north and west of the Sea of Galilee.
So a little bit on the redactional. Actually, I'll talk about the fulfillment quotation here. So the wording of the fulfillment quotation corresponds neither to the Masoretic text, nor the Septuagint, nor the Targum, though it comes closest to the Masoretic. The first part of the quotation is shortened in comparison with all known Old Testament texts by, among other things, omitting all verbal clauses. That shifts the weight to the second part of the quotation, the part from Isaiah 9:1. And then Isaiah 8:23 provides only a series of subjects for the aorist Eden, saw or I saw. Or no, would it be he saw? It might have been he saw. Further modified by the adverbial statements. Moreover, the second verb, anatelen, dawned or sprang up, is unusual because this translation is not at all close to the Hebrew, which would I can't read the Hebrew, but it would correspond with lampain. So I'm guessing as the infinitive to, I'm not actually sure. But it's an infinitive, nor is there evidence for it anywhere else. One can wonder whether a remembrance of Numbers 24:17 resonates here. Then presumably the wording of the quotation presupposes a messianic interpretation of Isaiah 8:23 through 9:1. Indeed, a Christian interpretation, since the passage was not interpreted messianically in Judaism. The aorists also suggest as much, because the aorist is the past tense, and it's like definitive. Or the way it's described is punctiliar. So, like when we put ed at the end of words, it's that. Okay. So it's not like you were doing something. It's not like you were in the process of doing something. It's punctiliar. That's what an aorist is. Must we therefore assume that we have here a Christian ad hoc translation of our passage? This translation cannot come from the evangelist Matthew because the wording of the quotation creates serious difficulties in the context. The lesser difficulty is caused by the fact that beyond the Jordan is completely superfluous, since the focus is exclusively on Galilee of the Gentiles. So why did he not eliminate words here also, where such large parts of Isaiah 8:23 are already omitted? However, the greater difficulty is that the land of Zebulun in no way fits the Matthean context. Jesus moves his residence from Nazareth in the region of Zebulun to Capernaum in the region of Naphtali. So what is the sense of the proclamation of salvation to the land of Zebulun that Jesus has just left? It is clear that there is tension here and that Matthew has taken over the quotation only because of Galilee of the Gentiles and not because of the geographical references. It thus comes to him from Christian tradition, and in this case, unlike many quotations from Matthew 1 through 2, it has not been discovered in connection with its immediate context.
All right. Let's continue. From that time, Jesus began to preach and to say, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." And Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. Now, the word Simon, it comes from Shimon, which means God is heard. Peter, which Simon is called, is Greek for rock. Andrew
That's why
is a Greek form of man.
Yeah, so that would probably be Andres.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another way to say man. So you have multiple ways. One is more broad. So anthropos would be human more broadly, although man can also work there. Andres would be specifically male.
Mm-hmm. All right. And he saith unto them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men."
Yeah, he calls them away from their work and wants to make them fishers of people. With this promise, a space is created and a future horizon is opened up that in later parts of the gospel will be filled with content. Perhaps some readers think initially of Jeremiah 16:16 in the disciples' course, whose beginning refers back to our text. The disciples receive their first commission to fish for people in Matthew 10. With the parable of the fish net, the expression is clearly understood to refer to missionary activity.
Yeah, it's even evangelism.
Yeah.
And they straightway left their nets and followed him. And going on from thence, he saw other two brethren, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, in a ship with Zebedee their father, mending their nets, and he called them. And they immediately left the ship and their father and followed him. And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. And his fame went throughout all Syria. And they brought unto him all sick people that were taken with diverse diseases and torments, and those which were possessed with devils, and those which were lunatic, and those that had the palsy, and he healed them.
Sorry.
Hold up.
Palsy?
Hold up.
Wow.
Was that verse 24?
Yeah.
Okay.
And mine says demonics, epileptics, paralytics, and he healed them.
Yes, I also have that. What an interesting translation from the KJV. Yeah, so demon-possessed and epileptics and paralytics.
I'm a little dumbfounded at the palsy.
I have not heard that phrase used before. That's pretty funny though.
Wow.
Yeah, so in verse 24, with the three catchwords, demon-possessed, epileptics, and paralytics, Matthew indicates healings to which he will later return. In view of the Sermon on the Mount, it is important that a summary portrayal of Jesus' healing activity has preceded it, since Matthew is primarily concerned with Jesus' teaching. He puts chapters 5 through 7 before 8 through 9. However, Jesus the teacher is none other than the Messiah of Israel who accompanies people, including the church, with his helping power so that the crowds can follow him. So that's definitely an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah, you know, they have all these miracles, right? And they're just kind of like shoved into this one verse.
Yeah, I'm guessing as like a way to introduce the miracle stuff that's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are going to get miracles here.
Yeah, if he knows how to heal people, why didn't he just teach him how to heal people? He could have made himself way
Teach
more...
him how to heal.
Come on.
Yeah. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan. Now, Decapolis, they say the Decapolis in the NIV, and they say it's a league of free cities characterized by high Greek culture. All but one, Scythopolis, or Bethshan, were east of the Sea of Galilee and the Jordan River. The league stretched from a point northeast of the Sea of Galilee southward to Philadelphia, modern Amman.
Yeah, so it's just meant to refer back to like the area of biblical Israel.
Yeah. Now, that's the end of chapter 4. If you're enjoying the stream so far, give us a like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, family, neighbors, etc. The sick, those with the palsy.
Click that like button.
Yeah, and smash that bell. And we're about to hop into the Sermon on the Mount.
Oh, yeah, good stuff. Classic stuff.
Yeah, probably.
The Beatitudes, as it's called. Why is it called Beatitudes? What is a Beatitude?
I don't know.
Well, you know,
I have to use the restroom. So
okay, yeah.
Oh, do you?
yeah. So why don't you tell us all about the Sermon on the Mount using that?
Everything.
Using this?
Yeah.
Oh,
you haven't been using it, Lauren.
No, I haven't, because I mean we got plenty of other commentaries here.
I'll use that one.
All right, fine. I'll use this one. Matthew's initial summary of Jesus' teachings and works at the end of chapter 4 is illustrated by an extended section of Jesus' teachings. That's the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount is the first of the 5 collections of Jesus' teachings. So we have chapters 10, 13, 18, and then 24 through 25, created by the author of Matthew using teachings from Q, the saying source he has in common with the Gospel of Luke, and from other unknown sources in order to describe the fundamental attitudes and behaviors which should characterize the rest of Jesus' life and the community and whatnot. Let's see. So the teachings in chapters 5 through 7 have been grouped by theme and literary form. The 8 beatitudes and the sayings following them introduce the main teaching section, which itself is followed by a series of warning and exhortations. You gotta love those exhortations, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exhortate.
The attitudes and behaviors promoted by the sermon have seemed very idealistic or otherworldly to some commentators. The blessing of the poor and the promise that the meek will inherit the earth clash with the competitive quest for wealth in modern capitalist society. Yeah, you're telling me. Blessing of peacemakers and the command to love one's enemy pale before violent quests for power by nation states and ethnic groups. Of course, this stands in stark contrast to how a lot of very powerful Christians act, like mostly the ones like, in the government, stands in stark, like they should read this probably.
Yes.
Wow, you guys really messed up that email altogether.
I like how I did
it's
it.
one word.
I know. But now it's self-referential. It's funny.
Okay.
I don't know. I just thought everyone knew our email by now. Sorry. It's definitely our name at gmail.com.
Fernando provided us civilization. So
yeah, I could use civilization. Go look at it when you get the chance. I'd like to see civilization. The game, probably the first edition. We don't own that.
You should get it.
He got it straight from Sid Meier's.
Oh, okay. Either way, so we can move on. Did you want
the song, the bongo bongo bongo? I don't want to leave the Congo.
What?
What?
You don't know?
What?
The Andrews Sisters? Come on, guys.
Never heard that in my life.
I was just trying to get in.
Oh wait, yeah. I know what he's talking about.
I don't. Either way, so did you, before we hop into this next chapter here, did you want this commentary or not?
You can reference that. I'll reference these 3.
Okay, gotcha. I'll leave this one here then. All right. So how about we start with the Sermon on the Mount, shall we?
Yeah, we're starting with the beatitudes.
Yeah. Well, after a little introduction first.
Right.
Seeing the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him.
Yeah, so the exact location is uncertain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It may have been the gently sloping hillside at the northwest corner of the Sea of Galilee, not far from Capernaum. It was the new law, like the old, was given from a mountain. So it was,
yeah, okay.
it's customary for Jewish rabbis to be seated while teaching disciples. They're literally learners. The crowds are going to express amazement. So the disciples here may have a broader sense than the 12, or perhaps the sermon is addressed to the 12 with the crowds also listening.
Yeah, so onto the Beatitudes here. So the first, second, and fourth Beatitudes, so they're basing it on the Q text, like thinking, these are like, or that the author here got them from a different source.
Right. The sermon begins with 8 or 9 blessings, traditionally called Beatitudes.
Yeah. And according to this author, the first, second, and fourth Beatitudes are based on a Q text. The Q text may be identical to the Lucan text, presumably without the word nun, which means now, inserted. Whether the Beatitudes were originally formulated in the second or third person plural is a very difficult question, since the third person is more likely to belong to the genre of macarism. I don't even know what that means. The second person is more likely to be original. If this is the case, the Beatitudes were initially addressed directly to people who are suffering. So I'm going to leave this open here. For every section, he has like a huge history of interpretation, but either way.
Beatitudes from Latin beatus, translation of Greek makarios.
Yeah,
blessed,
okay, I see
fortunate.
it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, makarios. There it is. I now see it in the Greek. It's written here. Okay. All right. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth."
The Beatitude is taken from Psalm 37:11 and refers not so much to an attitude towards the people as to a disposition before God, namely humility.
Being
By the way, we do hear these words spoken at the beginning of Life of Brian by Monty Python. Let you know. Putting it in historical context.
Wow. That guy who died at the end of the Life of Brian always looked at the bright side of life, at least.
But cheese makers is not part of the Beatitudes, so I just wanted to let you know.
Very well.
Yeah, and there's a very good amount of this commentary is about each single beatitude. That's a lot.
So the poor in spirit, what do you think that is? What do they say is that is referring to on verse 3?
The first and third Beatitudes concerning the poor and meek are probably variants of one another, since both Greek words translate the Hebrew for poor, anawim. Poor in the Bible and the Second Temple literature refers not only to those lacking wealth, but also to the powerless, oppressed, needy members of society. The poor, meek, and powerless people are under the special care of God, like the poor, widows, and orphans, to whom God gives victory over the powerful in Isaiah 16:6 and 10:2. The poor may be Israel, oppressed by a foreign empire, or a community within Israel oppressed by authorities. This outlook opposes the standard wisdom position that the rich are blessed and the poor wretched, as found in Proverbs 10:15. The wealth of the rich is their fortress, the poverty of the poor is their ruin. and in a Qumran wisdom text was more insignificant than a poor man. 4Q 417 to 110.
So I am currently checking this against the Greek here. So for the poor in spirit part, so it has been interpreted in plenty of different ways. We must ask whether ptokos has the meaning of actual economic poverty or the metaphorical meaning humble or in general not having or lacking. So yeah, it could be either one there. The dative can be interpreted as a dative of means or a dative of respect or reference. Finally, pneuma, which can mean spirit. It can also be the Holy Spirit. As a result, various interpretations are possible. So this is in verse 3 there?
Well, there's a somewhat interesting point brought up in Eerdmans about poor in spirit. He says, it does not weaken the blessing of the poor found in Luke 6:20, but enlarges the category to include all those faithful to God, as in the Qumran War Scroll, where the poor in spirit are contrasted with the hard of heart, 1 QM 14:7.
So, okay, so if I were to translate this, the lowly, it could be, oh my God, yeah, so this is the dative. Yeah, so, makarioi hoi ptokoi toi numati. So it could be that, it could be the poor or the humble are blessed in the spirit or by the spirit, or they're blessed for the spirit, because that's the usage of the dative. It could be used in any of those contexts. So yeah, I guess that one is he could be saying that they're blessed by the spirit. So that is another interpretation. At least. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure no matter which way you translate, it's still the translation itself is fine because you can't really tell that much based on just that. You would pretty much have to add in the like your theological presuppositions in order to interpret a certain way.
Okay, let's call up Darth Dawkins.
Oh yeah, we'll do that.
He'll help us out.
It could, but from the Greek, it can be translated multiple ways. So, either way, so blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God.
Oh, nice.
And this is
peacemakers, those who promote peace as far as it depends on them. Romans 12:18. In doing so, they reflect the character of their heavenly Father, and so are called sons of God.
So there is a textual note here. So that's what, verse 9, right? So where? Oh, okay, here it is. Okay, so okay, so they have a textual note, but they're like, yeah, go back to the preface. I'm like, I don't want to go back to the preface.
The peacemakers also contrast with those in the final beatitudes.
But yeah, it would be, sons of God. Yeah. I was like, is there a textual difference here? No, there isn't. It's just sons of God. Don't know why they had to note that. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil things against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so,
isn't that nice?
Yeah, isn't it? For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you.
So the point brought up here in the Jewish annotated New Testament says that Jesus' followers faced hostilities from both Jews and pagans. Also, this verse could refer to Jews who chose death over committing grievous sins. In Hebrew, Kiddush Hashem, sanctification in the name of God, mandates that one suffer death rather than commit idolatry, unchastity, or murder. In Sanhedrin 74a.
So there is an interesting textual note here. So in verse 11, it says there that, who persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. So the word that's used for lying there, it's a pseudomenoi. So it's it's a middle passive form. And it's a participle. So although they have it noted here as a middle, but it can also in context it's probably a middle. I'll go with the textual critics notes, but the word itself either way. So it is uncertain whether the participle pseudomenoi should be included or omitted from the text. On the one hand, if the participle is original, its absence in the Western tradition can be accounted for as a result of copyists changing the wording to agree with the form of the beatitude in Luke 6:22. On the other hand, if the participle is not original, more than one copyist would have been tempted to insert pseudomenoi in order to limit the if I can flip a page properly, in order to limit the wide generalization in Jesus' teaching and to make explicit what was considered to be implicit in the meaning. That is, that Christians are not blessed when people speak evil about them with good reason. Morris, in the Gospel according to Matthew, notes that pseudomenoi is implied, quote, for what the enemy said would not really be evil if it were true, in order to show uncertainty about whether copyists added or omitted this participle. It is included within brackets. Yeah. So in the Greek New Testament, it's in brackets.
Why don't you continue on? There's a lot to get through.
All right. Fantastic. I will.
We're entering into a new section. We're done with the beatitudes and going into salt and light.
Yeah, salt and light. Love those, don't you?
Now, there's a few interesting things about salt. Following ancient Mesopotamian notions, salt symbolizes purity and wisdom. However, most of the salt used in Israel came from the Dead Sea and was full of impurities. This caused it to lose some of its flavor.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I mean, salt's pretty good. So, all right. I put salt on everything.
You're gonna have heart problems.
That I can't wait.
I've learned to not do that, and now when people add salt, it seems too salty to me. So it's a matter of taste.
There's not even such a thing as too salty.
I legit forgot where the salt was in my house, like until the other day. Because I was like, I never use it. Where is it?
So
Yeah.
of course, as we know, the Bible has had a huge effect on humanity in general at this point, right? Mm-hmm. And this is where we get a very certain phrase. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. If salt has lost its taste, but
it's sodium chloride. So if salt lost its taste, it's been replaced with something that isn't salt, because sodium chloride will
it'll continue to be sodium chloride.
Yes. Unless, of course, maybe that's a thing you should consider doing in your alchemy thing, is to have salt lose its taste.
Wow.
Yeah.
How? Oh my God. How?
How does salt lose its taste? Huh?
Well, let's see here.
We'll see when we coat Lawrence's tongue with wax.
Then yeah, it would be hard to taste it. That's true. So in his redactional introduction, Matthew places you, who mace, that's the word you, like you, emphatically first. As in verses 11 through 12, it is the entire community that is addressed here, not merely the apostles or the proclaimers. The emphatic you picks up on verses 11 through 12. It is precisely you who are persecuted and reviled, who are the salt of the earth. Salt of the earth is a strange sounding metaphor, since it is not immediately clear what is meant. One is anxious to find out. At the very latest, after the parallel world, cosmos, in verse 14, if not already because of 5:5, the reader who is wondering about the meaning will understand earth as referring to the world and not to soil, which would, the word that's used there, ge, as in the case with verse 14, the logion is to be understood in terms of Matthean universalism. It is unclear how the evangelist has understood the metaphor salt and the parable of the salt becoming, so he translates it as becoming dumb, but becoming tasteless would make sense. So potentially here, following especially the Jewish metaphorical use of salt in ancient times, and more recently, a variety of allegories have been suggested. Based on the function, some have reminded us that salt seasons purifies and preserves. The reality to which the salt refers is the disciples' wisdom, their proclamation, and their willingness to sacrifice. Okay, so if salt loses its use. I can't speak.
Yes.
So that's the idea. So it's not just becoming tasteless. It's all the issues that come along with having salt that doesn't. It's not salt anymore. It doesn't work like it's supposed to. So I guess that would make sense there. But apparently there are lots of ways to use it. I think becoming dumb there, while a weird thing to say about salt, does make sense, actually.
Yeah. So I'm assuming here they're referring to mostly sodium chloride and perhaps a little bit of potassium chloride, and not the general chemical version of salt. The more limited version of salt, chemically speaking.
I'm sure you're right about chemically speaking. Okay, so they're being said that they're great, but I guess they're not doing as well as they should. Effectively. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand.
So
so if you're great, you should be shown to the world.
Yeah. The basket here, it's a bowl in the NIV, and they say that the term refers to a bowl that had about 8 quarts of ground meal or flour.
Okay.
So,
and mine says, by the way, a peck measure.
But either way, the point that's is getting across, and it gives light to all the house. Yeah, okay. So everyone should be able to see them if they're so great. People should look at them. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven.
Right. Matthew uses the term Father in heaven or Heavenly Father 17 times, whereas Mark and Luke use the term only once each, and John doesn't use it at all.
Oh, that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're on to another section here.
Yes, the new section, the fulfillment of the law.
Yeah, so the way this is pointed out in Hermenia, the way it's titled is, look how he titled it, the main part. Like we're halfway into the commentary, and he's like, this is the main part. Yep. It's just amusing. So, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass from the law until all is accomplished.
Yeah.
Got a lot to talk about on this one.
Iota, in Hebrew, it's yod, the smallest letter. If the letter cannot be altered, then surely the rest of the Torah must be upheld as well. According to rabbinic teachings, not even a stroke of a letter can be changed between Torahs. Now, when they talk about the law and the prophets, law is nomos in Greek, but it's the Septuagint term for Torah. And when it talks about the law and the prophets, it's a technical term for the Jewish canon. So possibly the whole of the Tanakh that we've already read in previous episodes of Atheist Sunday School, the whole thing.
We have. That's true.
So many interpreters contrast the new teachings of Jesus with the old teachings of Judaism, which they abrogate or supersede. Others claim that Jesus' teachings have a radical and unique character which distinguishes them from commonly accepted understandings of Jewish law. Contrasts of the spirit of the law to the letter, the purity of motive to outward observance, or God's true will to legalistic conformity import later anti-Jewish theology into Matthew and homogenize diverse first-century Jewish communities into a caricatured opponent to Christianity. In reality, the author of Matthew eagerly combats the view that Jesus abolishes or changes the law. Using a general statement and 6 cases, he argues that Jesus changes nothing in the law itself, the Bible, especially the Pentateuch or Torah, not even an iota or a horn or hook. That is neither the smallest letter of the alphabet nor any of the strokes used in forming the letters in Hebrew. The law remains in force until the end of the world, when all things have been accomplished. It is contrary to the context of the phrase "until all things have been accomplished" to refer to the death and resurrection of Jesus, as some have argued. So, there's a lot of Christians out there who don't think that you should follow the Jewish scriptures, right? They're like, oh, we like to eat bacon.
Right. So the thing is, again, it depends on what theological framework you'd fall under. So let's talk about this a little bit more. I mean, we're not going to cover all of this because this has had so many different interpretations. There's no way we could actually reliably cover it on the show. But here's some commentary on it. So decisive for the interpretation are the meaning of pleroo and kataluo, and also the Matthean context. So on the meaning of the words, in connection with law, nomos, and similar words, kataluo is almost idiomatic in Greek and Hellenistic Jewish texts. The meaning varies between to get rid of, in the sense of to cancel, to abolish, or to get rid of in the sense of not to keep or to break. Pleroo, so I guess, annul, maybe, I think. So luo means by itself to loosen. So and kata means down. So loosen down, effectively, is kind of the idea behind it. So not to keep, I suppose, is a good one. Pleroo is also documented in connection with law and similar words. Most texts speak here of fulfilling through obedience and practice. Based on the usage in the Hellenistic and Jewish parallels, the readers of that day would initially have more likely thought of Jesus' practice rather than of his teaching. On the context, of course, pleroo reminds the readers of the fulfillment quotations. However, this is, as it were, a diversion that leads to a dead end, an association that in the context cannot be correctly heard. Also important, however, is the reminiscence of 3:15, where Jesus and John fulfill, quote, all righteousness. The concern here was their action. The immediate context of our passage also makes one think of Jesus' action. However, the antithesis suggests that 5:17 has something to do with Jesus' teaching. Verse 19 is especially important. Here, in a similar antithesis, loosen, luo, is contrasted with doing and teaching. That in turn corresponds to the total image of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus, who teaches the will of the Father and the fulfilling of the law, is also the obedient Son of God, whom Matthew presents to his community as a role model. Based on the meaning of both verbs, we should thus most likely think that Jesus fulfilled the law through his obedience. However, the following context also permits us to think of his teaching. The idea is presumably a secondary idea in the text because Matthew thinks about the unity of practice and teaching with Jesus. However, praxis takes precedence. Especially when one thinks of Jesus' practice, it is noteworthy that Matthew uses fulfill, pleroo, and not keep, tereo, or do, poieo. Unlike the profane sources in Paul, pleroo is for him an exclusively Christological verb. Only Jesus and John the Baptist fulfills the law. There resonates a singular element of completeness and fullness. Fittingly, verse 17 is an I came saying, fulfilling the law and prophets. Fulfilling the law and prophets fully and comprehensively is Jesus' special mission. Verse 17 also contains a Christological element, even if Matthew is not thinking of Jesus' death and resurrection. It is then continued in verses 18 and 20 by the emphatic I say to you, and the especially in the ego, or I, used emphatically, of the antithesis. So it seems that when he's coming to fulfill the law, he's just coming to follow it. That's essentially what it means.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's necessarily like super messianic or anything. It just seems like he's following.
He's following the law.
Yeah.
He's telling you not to break the laws.
Yeah. And he's going to do that in practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, how nice.
Anyways, therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, now the scribes and Pharisees are generally known as pretty righteous.
Well, aren't the Pharisees the bad guys in this?
Well, it is an indirect attack on them, saying they're not going to make it. So unless you're better than them, you're not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I assume it's what is a big is because it's the particular the key verb is exceeds.
Right.
Or surpass. Mine says surpasses, by the way.
Sure, yeah.
Well, the Jewish Annotated New Testament says that this is intentionally setting the bar high because the Pharisees are known as pretty righteous.
Gotcha, okay. And to the next section here. This is something on anger. Okay, looks like we got quite a bit of...
it's on murder.
Murder?
According to the NIV.
Oh yeah, it does. Okay, so it's it's just titled here anger, but it does talk about murder. Okay, you have heard that it was said to those of old, "You shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment." But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says, "You fool," will be liable to the hell of fire. To the hell of fire? That's a very interesting translation, but I guess the horrifying circumstances of fire.
The Gehenna of fire.
Sure.
In Greek, it's Gehenna, which is the valley of Ben Hinnom.
Yep.
Which is where fire sacrifices of human beings were supposed to have occurred.
Verse 22.
Right. It says.
So, what is that? But to say in verse 22. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the reference is to so Gehenna, its murky reputation resulted to it being associated in the New Testament era with purgatory and or hell, where the wicked, according to some traditions, are tortured after death. The rabbis mention Gehenna as a place of eternal fire, where evildoers and enemies are punished in Eruv and Sanhedrin and Pesa and Berkaba.
So the so yeah, it is their Gehenan that's used.
Yeah. So the idea is like the hell of fire. Basically, it's not like hellfire. It's like the torture that ensues by fire.
Yeah.
Right. Which I guess is hellfire, but it's the way that they phrase it here, which is strange.
It is strange. So this has changed a lot since like the original idea of Gehenna in the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
So verse 22, my translation has the word raka, which it says is Aramaic for empty head or good for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
What is the Greek for that? That says, whoever shall say to his brother raka shall be guilty before Supreme Court.
Yes, raka may be related to the Aramaic word for empty and mean empty-headed.
Yeah, fool. Yeah.
What does the Greek say for that?
It says raka.
Okay.
Yeah.
So insulting people and calling people names is illegal.
And saying you fool, like I just did, I'm guilty enough to go to the hell of fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
So reading this verse condemns you to the
Landon.
hell of fire.
So if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First, be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. So, okay, so it seems like, take family more, or set that as more important than sacrificing at the altar,
Yeah.
or just giving any.
It
gifts?
presumes Jesus' audience participated in temple sacrifice, possibly also an allusion to Genesis 4, the story of Cain and Abel.
Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly, I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. So this next section that's coming up is on lust, apparently.
Yeah, and these are all examples of the letter of the law, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They're all these things that are following, basically for the rest of this chapter, are just telling people to follow the laws that are already in place.
Yeah. By the way, in my translation, sent, they said is quadrans, which is, I guess, a 64th of a something or other. What's the Greek for that last? I'm talking about the last word of
about
26.
About the last penny there.
The penny in the NIV just says that it's referring to the smallest Roman coin.
Yeah. So quadrans, Roman copper coin worth 1/64th of a denarius. Oh my God. That's the word that's used there. Quadranten. Yeah, so it's right in there. Wow, okay. All right. Continuing on here. You have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So it seems like, he's taking these laws, and as a rabbi, Jesus has this new interpretation of these laws.
Right, and Eerdmans does comment that it seems like he's consistently expanding the scope of the laws.
That's exactly what it looks like. And if we take a look back into all the things we've referenced in like the Talmud, he's perfectly keeping in tradition, in rabbinical tradition.
Yeah.
All right. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than your whole body go into hell.
Jesus is not teaching self-mutilation.
Are you sure?
The point is that we should deal as drastically with sin as is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We need to say that because otherwise YouTube will demonetize this
Sure.
Yeah.
this session.
Okay,
We're
so
not
yeah,
recommending self-mutilation. Do not do that.
Yeah.
the addition of verses 29 through 30 confirms that Matthew understands verse 18 as a radical demand of obedience. At issue is not simply a mirror of the soul that reveals one's own sin. There is no tendency apparent here to moderate the demands on a practical level. Matthew speaks, perhaps unlike his source, first of being led astray by the eye, because that immediately follows verses 27 through 28. In rabbinic texts, however, the hand is also regarded as an instrument of adultery and unchastity. Fair enough. Are the logia meant realistically or symbolically? A realistic interpretation is possible to the degree that occasionally cutting off the hands is demanded in rabbinic texts, precisely in the case of sexual offenses. Admittedly, there is little evidence that it was actually carried out. In the history of interpretation, the literal interpretation was, for all practical purposes, unanimously rejected. An interpretation of tear out and cut off as hyperboles was more likely. The sense then was that one is no longer to use the eye and the hand for sinful purposes. As the interpretation of the ancient church already recognized, however, the problem with such an interpretation was the addition of right, dexios, to the eye. Why should the right eye play a special role in the seduction to sin? Right symbolically represents good, costly or important, sitting at like the right hand of God and stuff like that. The double saying may be a warning against sin attached to established expressions. In order to avoid sin, one is to give up everything, even what is most important and most treasured. The perspective is one of judgment that makes even physical integrity a matter of secondary importance. So, and the original saying was probably not limited to sexual offenses. Such sayings can be applied to many areas. So that's at least kind of helpful. But the fact that that was already like a rabbinical interpretation is pretty amusing.
Yeah.
Either way, don't actually cut off your hand or tear out your eye.
Right.
But just act as if you don't have them, so you don't sin anymore. There
Speaking
you go.
of tearing out your eyes, the next section is on divorce.
Oh.
Yay!
Yeah. Well, yeah. Can't win
It was also said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the ground of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. That's dumb.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
really dumb.
You can divorce for
Jesus, bad
whatever reason. If you just are not into the person anymore, you may sound, you may be an asshole for doing that, but if you just don't like him anymore, yeah.
These two verses have caused an enormous amount of harm in society.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And it's put into this notion of divorce being somehow extremely wicked and so it is, but it's been used to justify having extraordinary the bad relationships and just keep going because you're married.
Yeah. Remember Henry VIII?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. That didn't go well.
No.
And also here, if a man divorces his wife, it specifies that he causes her to become an adulteress.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently that's how that works. All right, let's continue.
I gotta say it's anyway. Wrong, in my opinion.
Exactly, wrong. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you,
mine says vows there.
Right.
Yeah,
there's an oath. They call it oaths in the NIV.
yeah, you make a promise, you should keep the promise, essentially, but specifically to the Lord. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. We'll get to that one. Let what you say be simply yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. Wow.
Yeah. Now mine in 37 says yes, yes, or no, no, not just yes or no.
Oh, okay.
So Eerdmans,
like emphatically, okay.
Eerdmans comments on this. Many take the prohibitions against divorce and oaths as changes in biblical law. However, the Bible does not positively command the practice of divorce in Deuteronomy 24, oaths, and vows. It assumes that they exist and pragmatically regulates them. The New Testament disapproves of these practices and so regulates them differently. In Jewish law, a woman had to be provided for by a man, a father first, then one's husband, and if he died, a son, brother, etc., or a new husband. Thus, families arranged marriages for the economic welfare of their daughters, and the husband married and divorced his wife, but not vice versa. In order to provide legally and economically for a divorced woman, biblical law requires that a man divorcing his wife give her a divorce document which frees her to marry another man. The New Testament and the Synoptic Gospels and Paul forbid remarriage after a divorce. This early, widely accepted teaching, which probably came from Jesus, safeguards the integrity of the community, which could easily be fractured by divorces among its members. I'm not sure I buy into that. It's a bit much. I mean, they do raise a good point in Eerdmans, like that. Yeah, you would only see men divorcing women.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see it the other way around.
So I did want to note here on these last few verses. So the community's additions to verses 34 through 35 deepen but do not change the original meaning. Thinking of Isaiah 66:1 and Psalms 48:3, the community strengthens the idea of God's majesty that stands behind the substitution formulas. The designation of God as Great King is a frequent biblical metaphor. The accents are not shifted until verse 36. By taking up another assertion formula, the verse first shows that the prohibition of oaths is actually to be understood concretely and not merely in a Platonic general sense. However, the argument has shifted. The issue is not primarily God's power. It is the human lack of power because of which people cannot even change the color of their hair. Much as in 6:27 and 34, the tone of this verse is one of wisdom-like resignation. So it's like, don't even bother taking an oath, just yes or no, I guess. So, and you were talking about like the yes, yes, and no, no. I'm guessing that's because it's supposed to be emphatic. But either way, yes and no still does work. So verse 37 is newly formulated in the Matthean tradition. What is meant? Okay, so yeah, the doubled yes or no is pointed out. Basically it says whatever I said here, that it serves to intensify it.
All right, continue.
You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you.
So
what does the Greek use for mile in verse 41?
Okay, I'll check.
all right. Now for resisting, here it probably means in a court of law. And striking, the Greek verb used means slap with the back of the hand. It was more of an insult than an act of violence. The point is that it's better to be insulted even twice than to take the matter to court.
Also, the word that's used for mile is just mile, million. It's in the accusative, so it'd probably be milios.
Okay.
I'm guessing here.
A
Oh, no,
thousand
sorry.
Something other.
No, it would be million. Never mind. But yeah, it's there we go.
1,000 steps or 1,000 paces? Is that what it?
It just says mile.
Okay.
So, let's continue on here. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? You therefore must be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect.
So hating your enemy, that's not found anywhere in the Old Testament, according to this commentary and this commentary. Of course, we can contest that because there's plenty of sentiment towards hating your enemies.
Sentiment, yes.
And commands for genocide and plenty of stuff like that. But they do concede hatred for one's enemies was an accepted part of the Jewish ethic at the time.
Yeah.
Also, for these tax collectors, traditionally known as publicans, not republicans, but just publicans, these were local men employed by Roman tax contractors to collect taxes. Because they worked for Rome and often demanded unreasonable payments, the tax collectors gained a bad reputation and were generally hated and considered traitors.
Well, publicans collected taxes on a commission basis was part of this. So they were basically given a portion of the proceeds that they managed to collect. And there was not a prohibition against overcollection. They could charge people excessive amounts if they felt they needed some money. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the Romans did a lot of auditing and checking, and if a publican took more than their commission, they were killed. So they had strict quotas to go by, but they were allowed to charge the people that the taxes they're collecting from a commission for the process of extracting taxes from them.
Oh, wonderful.
So they were not liked. And so they basically, I guess the verse is saying, don't even the tax collectors, do that, the hated people. So,
yeah. So is that everything for chapter 5?
That is chapter 5. Yeah.
Wow, it took us like an hour.
So, well, it is kind of a long chapper.
Yeah. So, do you hear something? I hear something.
I do hear something. It's.
Where is it? Is it maybe my microphone?
It might be.
Behold, I am your Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to let all you heathens and sinners know that I support this wonderful episode of Atheist Sunday School. Lawrence and Reuben try their very best to bring you the true glory of the Bible, and they need your help. They have provided links to their Patreon page and other social media just for you. Once again, my name is Jesus Christ. And this is Milwaukee Atheists. The Lord is with them. God bless.
Oh my God, Jesus, Jesus Christ.
Wow, we were just hearing from you, and now you came back again.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of shocked that you didn't include us in your analysis there. Maybe
Yes.
throw us in at the end there, like, hey, also, God wants you to subscribe and like and comment all the Milwaukee Atheist
and
stuff.
all those things, and the links in the description below, sort of stuff. So
Yeah,
you should do that. Otherwise, maybe you might be considered to be thrown into the lake of slightly tepid water.
Man, that lake of slightly tepid water. What a hellhole.
But it took from us again our dear co-host.
Yeah, Ruben has ascended, it seems, and hopefully he comes back with some revelation from Jesus, as is tradition.
Maybe his righteousness. Could it be that Reuben's righteousness exceeded that of the scribes and the Pharisees?
Oh, you know what? That's probably it. You probably got it. Wow, that's I'm a little shocked, honestly. Oh, but you know what? It seems like he wasn't quite good enough to make the cut.
Forever. Maybe better than the scribes, but not the Pharisees.
Yeah, better than the scribes, not the Pharisees. There you go.
See, I got raptured.
Did you?
But I got bored.
Oh, so you just decided to head back down here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Happens.
Okay,
Well.
Landon, why don't you hop into chapter 6?
Okay. So, chapter 6. Beware of practicing your righteousness before men to be noticed by them. Okay, so I guess women is okay. Otherwise, you'll have no reward with your Father who is in heaven.
Yeah, the Torah enjoins one to walk humbly regarding matters of public and private prayer and ritual. There's a part of the Talmud which states, be not like servants who serve their master for the sake of receiving a reward.
Wow. Although I do want to point out that the word that's used in Greek is anthropon, so it can just mean people, humans. It doesn't have. It's not specifically men.
So, verse 2. When therefore you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may be honored by men. Truly I say to you, they have the reward in full.
Yeah, with trumpets, perhaps this is a reference to the noise made by coins as they were thrown into the temple treasury.
What?
Or the phrase may be used figuratively to mean make a big show of it. For hypocrites, the Greek word means play actor. Matthew uses the word 13 times, Mark twice, Luke 3 times. Here it refers to those who fake being pious.
Yeah, it looks like the interpretation here is about showing off, which would make more sense, honestly.
But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, that your alms may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you.
Yeah, the 12th century Jewish philosopher Maimonides advocated...
Oh, yeah, good old Maimonides.
Yep, advocated secret almsgiving as the second highest of his 8 levels of tzedakah, or charity. The highest is supporting a fellow Jew through financial means or other forms of assistance. Also, the Sukkot 49b, the rabbis discuss gemilut chasadim, the idea that deeds of loving kindness can supersede charity.
And when you pray, you are not as the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogue and the street corners in order they be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. And of course, I underline this next verse, say, but I say to you, when you pray, go into your inner room, and when you have shut the door, pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you.
So once again, the positive instruction is drastic and figurative.
Go to your closet and pray.
Yeah, go to your closet and pray. Strictly speaking, tameon is the storage room that was always found in the Palestinian farmhouse. Also, Ellis,
Thank you.
thank you for the $49.99. Very
you.
much appreciated,
Very
man.
much.
And remember, Alice, we got the after show. After this show, we got the patron hangout.
This was in secret.
Oh, it was in secret. Whoopsies.
We shouldn't mention it.
We won't mention it.
All right. Oops.
Well, yeah, you still have your reward in full. So
Yeah, you're reward in full. I'll send a link to all the patrons afterwards. All right.
We've got a lot of bots doing spam stuff in the chat recently.
Yeah, we have. I've been seeing that in a lot of chats actually.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Why would they target Milwaukee atheists?
Because
How great you are.
your dreams .online. That's us.
Wow. I don't think that's you.
Well, hopefully not.
You'd be surprised. All right, let's continue on. So it refers to the storage room that was always found in the Palestinian farmhouse, but in a broader sense, it was any chamber that was hidden and not visible from the street. However, the intention of the command is not simply to prescribe certain places for prayer or to forbid praying in the synagogue. To that extent, the ancient church's interpretation is right. It is not the place that harms, but the nature and the purpose. Instead, with images and hyperboles, the saying is designed to emphasize the right attitude for prayer, saying that even prayer can become a means of self-promotion. It intends to make people aware of this danger and then teach them to pray the right way. Prayer is to be.
I wish that would happen.
Hey, did you pray the right way, Chris?
I don't know.
No, you don't know.
Well,
You probably didn't.
probably not. Jeez, people should know this.
What a shame, Chris.
Ellis won't be with us in the after show because he's going to hit all of his personal records for his lifting.
Yeah,
Yep.
he's definitely got this. Easy clap.
GG.
So yeah, it's mostly about like you got to pray with the right intentions and stuff, which wouldn't be the first time we've heard stuff like that.
yeah. So verse 7. And when you are praying, do not use meaningless repetition as the Gentiles do.
Yes. I like the NIV's version of this. It says babbling like pagans. So they specify that they used long lists of the names of their gods in their prayers, hoping that by constantly repeating them, they would call on the name of the God that would help them. Jesus isn't condemning all long prayers, but meaningless verbiage in praying, which is something that carries over from the Talmud.
Which is kind of interesting, given like some Christian traditions of some of the Orthodox stuff where they have lots of repetition, but they would say that repetition is not meaningless. I guess is their rationale.
It's not
Anyway.
meaningless to do 150 Hail Marys.
What about the 151st?
Yep.
That would
one
be
is
meaningless.
Yeah.
That's right out. For they suppose they will be heard for their many words. Therefore, do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you even ask him.
Yeah. So on this verse, although it's interesting that that we have that there, you know, good old stuff for theology.
Mm-hmm.
So the reading is probably just so we have it properly here as just your father, right? But apparently there are some manuscripts that would have it be God your father.
Mm-hmm.
So the expanded reading, ho theos ho patre, sorry, hold on. Ho theos ho pater humon. So
God your Father, or the God the Father of you, plural, occurs nowhere else in Matthew and is a scribal addition reflecting the common placing together of God and Father in Paul's letters. The reading ho pater humon ho uranios, so the Father, your heavenly Father, found in several later manuscripts, is obviously an addition made to agree with the wording of verses 9 and 14. So yeah, but those are probably not original, but it is and it is interesting that even to this small verse they would add like the titles and then calling him heavenly or saying he's in heaven.
Yeah, well, it isn't so small because something very very typical of Christian practice follows here. But it is noteworthy that the Jewish philosopher Philo indicated also that God already knows what the reasons are for one's prayers, but still desires to be sought out for assistance for some reason.
Yeah, right.
So, Landon, why don't you hop into the meat here?
Okay. Verse 9. Pray then in this way, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we have forgiven our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Yeah, so lots of so this is of course what the Lord's Prayer,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've heard this a billion majillion times.
Yeah. Hallowed be thy name. It's also
Good Iron Maiden song.
yeah, good Iron Maiden song, I was gonna say.
But I mean, it takes from Psalm 105. It takes from the Aramaic Kaddish prayer. It takes from Isaiah 6:3, which became more common during the Talmudic era. And the Kaddish begins with, "May his great name grow exalted and glorified." So, obviously, this prayer here is very important to Christian practice.
It is, yeah.
But ironic that the thing that people chant around a rosary immediately follows a thing saying not to do repetitious prayers.
Right? Yeah. Now,
It's ridiculous.
There's in Protestant churches, there's a big thing about the verse 12 of, are you supposed to say debts or trespasses? There's a big schism there.
So let's see, verse 12.
Debts
Forgive.
in the NIV. It says it
Yeah.
refers to moral debts.
or moral, moral debts or sins. So, what does the Greek say about forgive us our what?
Let's see here. Just making sure. So it's verse 12. Wrongdoing. So it'd be sins.
Okay.
Yeah.
As we have forgiven our what? Debtors?
Debtors.
Wrongdoers?
Yeah.
Wrongdoers or debtors?
Well, it does say debtor there. So it says forgive forgive us our sins. It would be effectively, or just wrongdoing or wrongdoing. And then it says as we have forgiven our debtors.
Yes. So that was a big thing. There's Protestant things, but that, and I guess some people claim, well, the Catholics do it this way, and certain Protestants do it this way. So the people get mad, and sometimes when the in Protestant tradition, when the preacher is preaching the Lord's Prayer, everyone's supposed to go and pray out loud along with him, which kind of goes against one of the other bits about prayers in secret. But
Right.
let's ignore that particular bit of logic, and say that essentially this is about people would, they sometimes, the preacher would say, now I'm gonna say the Lord's Prayer, and in this church we use this word, and they're referring to that debtors, sin, trespasses, that sort of thing. They'd have to tell people, because apparently it would be bad if you weren't chanting along in repetition of course you're in a room, the same stuff.
Yeah, so I want to say a couple of things here. The Lord's Prayer was probably recited in the author's community. Since the forms of oral prayers were not fixed in this period, another version has also survived in Luke 11. The Lord's Prayer shares themes and terminology with the ancient and central Jewish prayers, the 18 benedictions in the Amidah, and the Kaddish, which may have been recited by Jews in some form during the first century. The prayer addresses God as our Father, a metaphor which appears in 3rd Isaiah and in the 18 benedictions. In addition, many biblical and extra-biblical texts understand Israel as God's child, and thus God implicitly as Father. Because Christians have consistently confessed Jesus as the Son of God, the father-son relationship has been central to Christian theology and prayer. J. Jeremias claimed that the Aramaic for father, Abba, which Jesus would have used, was an intimate address, like the English daddy.
Okay.
Funny.
And thus a qualitative theological advance. However, the word Abba is the normal word for father and is used as a nominal title for adults who have fathered sons. Christianity's theology of God's fatherhood does not derive from this one word.
Yeah. So more on that here. So it was certainly Matthew who located the prayer in the center of this Sermon on the Mount, following verses 7 through 8. The major question is whether the evangelist, on his own initiative, redactionally edited a text as anchored in the community's liturgy, as was the Lord's Prayer. It appears that the possibility is not excluded in principle, and in the case of Luke, whose version of the Lord's Prayer nowhere appears as part of a community liturgy, it is even probable. Is that also true for Matthew? It speaks for such a possibility that the vocabulary of the special petitions is largely Matthean. Relevant also is the closely related didache text that is familiar with the two petitions added in Matthew. So in the didache 8, 1 through 2 is one of the passages that make it probable that the didache presupposes the Gospel of Matthew, because it is familiar with the connection of the Lord's Prayer with Matthew. To be sure, the didachist does not copy Matthew directly. He quotes the text of the gospel as he remembers them from the community's worship. That could also be the case for Matthew himself. Did he take over the wording of the Lord's Prayer from his community's tradition? While on the whole, the language of the added petitions is Matthean, a few of the details speak against the idea that he is their author. Furthermore, there is quite clearly evidence for the Matthean version, not only in the didache, but also in writings that elsewhere show no contrast with the Gospel of Matthew. Thus, it is possible that the two added petitions were already found by the evangelist. If that is the case, the special petitions illustrate how much in his own diction the evangelist took over the language of his community.
So, in that sense, on verse 13, the last segment, there is a potential note saying that last clause was omitted in the earliest manuscripts.
Yeah, it does not occur in the Jewish annotated New Testament.
So we're talking about, and bring us not into temptation, but preserve us from evil?
On verse 13, it says, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Right, that is also not in the NIV.
Yeah, I that's interesting that's even in there in verse 13.
Is that, what is the Greek text? Does that have it in there or not?
Let's see. No, it doesn't. It just straight up does not.
It is in the KJV.
Aha. Okay. Well, yeah, it's straight up just not in the Greek. So there you go. So yeah, another nice little addition there. So we can
Continue.
Yeah, we can continue.
Okay, so verse 14. For if you forgive men their transgressions, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men, then your Father will not forgive your transgressions.
I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, in Judaism, they do a different, like, in Christianity, they do the confession
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Well, in Judaism, in order to be forgiven for your sins, you have to actively seek out someone and get them to forgive you multiple times.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Verse 16. And whenever you fast, do not put on a gloomy face, as the hypocrites do, for they neglect their appearance in order to be seen fasting by men. For they neglect their appearance in order to be seen as fasting by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, so you may not be seen fasting by men, but your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you. It says, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you.
So many motives and goals for fasting may be found in Jewish literature. For example, repentance for sins, preparation for prayer, or visionary experience, petition for help in need, or intercession with God in a time of crisis. Matthew does not mobilize that rich tradition to support a regular practice of fasting, nor does he give fasting a prominent role in his community's life. Jesus fasted when he was tempted in the wilderness, but he does not demand that his disciples fast during his lifetime, although they will fast after he dies. Matthew assumes fasting as a practice, but he does not specify times or reasons for it. His main goal is to combat ostentation and pretense by his opponents and to promote modest, sincere behavior among his group of followers of Jesus.
So just to be clear, so what verse did you just finish, Landon?
Verse 18.
Just finished verse 18. Okay.
Want me to say that again, or are you?
Nope.
No, this is just
Okay. All right. So
apparently, unless it's somewhere hidden in here, it's just not in Hermenia. Yeah, I was like really lost. I was like, where are we reading this?
yes, that was verse 18. So so that you may not be seen fasting by men, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you. We have a new paragraph starting at verse 19.
Yeah, and this is a different section according to Eerdmans, and it is also a different subsection in the Jewish Annotated Version.
Okay. Verse 19. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in or steal.
Yeah, so for breaking in and stealing, one today might think of like breaking a door open or a window.
Yeah.
But houses in Palestine had walls made of mud bricks and could be broken into relatively easily. It was not difficult to literally break through the wall and steal things.
Wow.
I am trying to figure out why these verses. Oh wait. Oh, okay, because he puts them together with something else. Okay, I see.
Okay, so we just finished verse 20. Verse 21. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The lamp of a body is in the eye. If therefore your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light.
If your eye is clear. Interesting. So the translation that is used in Hermenia is now if your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light.
And mine also says an alternate word for clear is healthy. your body will be full of light. Now,
Interesting.
Now, I want to say that this is not a admonition to shine ultraviolet light up your rectal orifice as a certain president has suggested. This is not what they're talking about. Physically, the physics does not allow the light which reaches your retina to flood the rest of your body and cure what may be ill with you. So do not do that. Just saying. Just saying. Just clarifying. So verse 23. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. And if therefore the light that is within you is darkness, how great is the darkness? Now, darkness is absence of light. So if the light is darkness, how can light be darkness?
You pose very logical questions. You stop that now.
I just say it's just the physics of everything. So what I'm just saying is if therefore the light is the absence of photons, if the electromagnetic radiation is the absence of photons, how great is that absence of electromagnetic radiation? Or something like that.
It's so great.
Now, of course, this is all meant to be metaphorical because there's not actual light inside of your body that they're talking about.
There's some people like Kent that say it's the literal word of God. No metaphors at all.
Well,
unless God is speaking metaphorically, in which case God is literally speaking metaphorically.
Of course, yeah.
Literally.
I remember being told that. Verse 24, not by Kent, but by somebody else. Verse 24, which I also underline. No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate one and love the other, or you will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon.
Yeah.
So, and that's God and money in the NIV.
Well, let's see.
What does the Greek say that word is?
So the translation in Hermenia is mammon. And I'm currently checking. It would be cannot not serve God and serve mammonai. So cannot serve unto let's check here. Yeah, it would just be money. That's the translation.
Is that a reference to some sort of god of riches or something like that, or what is that? Where does that term come from?
It's a very interesting question that I'm currently looking for the answer. Let's see. Based on its Jewish background, however, it is not necessarily obvious that serving God excludes the possibility of serving.
Mammon is the Aramaic word for wealth. It appears in the Hebrew Dead Sea Scrolls, 1 QS 62 CD 1420, as well as in Greek here and in Luke 16:9, 11, and 13.
Yeah, so it's interesting that they just would keep it as mammon.
Maybe they just thought it was spooky.
Maybe. Indeed, wealth can be understood as a gift of God. Like Luke 16:11, the text uses the Aramaic word. As in the case, so they kept it that way because in the Greek text they just use the Aramaic word. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the Greek speakers didn't know enough Aramaic.
I mean, they probably did. Because this, I think they probably would know Aramaic.
You would hope.
I would think that Matthew would. Let's see. As in the case,
the translators from.
Oh, sure, the
English.
translators. Okay. You would think they would, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
As is the case there, it has a negative connotation, but it means stock, provision, supply, and in Hebrew and Aramaic, it is used neutrally for wealth and fortune. In our compactly formulated and seldom changed Greek saying, the word is a rhetorically effective relic that emphasizes the strangeness of serving mammon, and makes easier its personification. Hate and love could also have the weaker meanings reject and prefer. Okay, I guess.
All right. Let's keep going.
Okay, verse 25. For this reason I say to you, do not be anxious for your life as to what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor your body as to what you shall put on. For is not life more than food, body, and clothing?
You know, this is strange because just before in this sermon, he was like, oh, not changing one letter of the law, not one iota, not even a mark. And now he's like, oh, you know those laws that are like about dietary regulations, and, you know, that doesn't really matter. Like, it took him a whole 5 minutes to completely backtrack on his initial statement.
Well, I think...
But of course, you know, the apologetics has many reasons to explain away what you just said. So
yeah, sure. I would think that this would be more like not to care about that stuff, but it's like, I think this is more about God providing because of the whole
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think so. But in fact, look at verse 26. It comes back and says,
yeah,
look at the birds of the air. For they do not sow, nor do they reap, nor gather into barns. Yet the heavenly Father feeds them. Are not worth more? Are you not worth more than they? And which of you, being anxious, can add a single cubit to his lifespan?
Yeah, so I think this is mostly just supposed to be about God providing.
Right. And it's, of course, interpreted by some to be like they don't have to follow the dietary laws, which is why Christians eat bacon.
Yeah. And so forth. And, of course, that I will refer you to the movie The Life of Brian, where they're listening to this sermon in the back, and they get some words wrong. It's worth that alternate passage to consider. Anyway, so back to this text, verse 28, which I've underlined this thing in my Bible. And why are you anxious about clothing? I mean, all you need to do is to go to the link in the description below to get a T-shirt.
Right.
And you can get all kinds of great clothing. Like this one here, right? This one here that says, you know, he is risen. See?
Yeah.
What a fantastic shirt.
To helium.
It's quite amazing. And you could get that same shirt for the low price of whatever it costs.
Well, maybe not that same one because Landon's wearing that one.
Oh.
Yeah, but you can get one equivalent to this.
Exactly.
This he is risen, and of course with the behold, of course. But anyway, so why are you anxious about clothing? For you can get it in the clothing store. Observe how lilies of the field grow. They do not toil, nor do they spin. Yet I say to you, even Solomon in all his glory did not clothe themselves as one of these. Oh, why didn't Solomon put on like
a flower dress?
Full of flowers? Yeah, I guess he never thought of it. So verse 30. But God so arrays the grass of the field, which is alive today, and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace. Will he not much more do for you, O men of little faith?
So throwing it into the furnace, grass was commonly used to heat the clay ovens in Israel. If it works.
And of course, it's "O men of little faith." I guess the women don't count.
Now the NIV changes this "O you of little faith."
Well, okay, we can check the Greek. So which verse is that exactly?
This is verse 30.
Verse 30. Okay.
The last phrase.
KJV, "O ye of little faith."
It's you. It's plural you.
Oh.
Okay.
So I guess we just had an especially patriarchal AJ Holman company employee, right?
I mean, it could be. Of course, you know there's a whole big thing here that talks about the the Bible Society and the general text and stuff. So we'll have to say because probably based on them. So anyway, verse 31. Do not be anxious then, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or with what shall we clothe ourselves? For all these things the Gentiles eagerly seek, but your heavenly Father who knows you need all these things. But for your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Not to say that verse 31 thing is one of the key center points of this type of the type of a religious the money worship folks.
Yeah.
There's a particular term for it. That where people basically it's this wealth gospel type stuff.
Yeah.
Saying that you should give money to the mega church and therefore you'll be wealthy. If you are righteous, then God will be wealthy. The Puritans also did a big thing where the Puritans who were thrown out of places like England came to the New World to set up their intolerant society. They firmly believed that you were poor. It was because God was not blessing you, that you did not seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And so the puritanical stuff really sort of said that poor people were poor because God wasn't helping them because they were naughty.
Yeah. Speaking of wealth, I want to return to mammon. So Greek mammonas, transliteration of Aramaic mammona, a word that came to mean riches, but originally was derived from aman, trust, reliance, meaning that in which other than God one places one's trust. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So, verse 34, therefore, do not be anxious for tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own.
So this has a very strange construction, though. So verse 34 is one of the secondary interpretations of our text in wisdom style. It is linguistically different. In a Semitic milieu, aurion can mean not only tomorrow, but the future in general. While the neutral predicate sufficient, arketon, at the beginning of the clause is possible in Greek, the genitive formulation will be anxious of itself. Merimnese yotes. So yeah, it's anxious of itself. Is very unusual. Evil does not have the usual meaning of moral wickedness. It could just mean like what bad things in general. Yeah, it has more general meaning of hardship or trouble. The content is equally difficult. One can choose between a more optimistic and a more pessimistic interpretation. So either understood optimistically, this verse can speak of the possibility of living fully in the present, and the pessimistic interpretation is more probable, however, because with verse 34c, the verse ends on a pessimistic note. All planning is futile. It is enough for a person to bear the burden of each day. Fair enough.
The KJV says, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's the end of chapter 6, huh?
Yeah, it is.
So everyone who's here, share it with your friends, family, neighbors. What was that thing before? People with the palsy?
Yeah, the palsy. That's right.
The palsy. It's in here.
Demon-possessed paralytics, right?
Yeah.
People with epilepsy, them too. Although the palsy was pretty good.
Yeah.
So
let's hop into chapter 7. I think this is the last bit of the Sermon on the Mount.
Last chapter of the day.
And the last chapter of this
one. Yeah, we have 2 more of these
just for Matthew.
Yeah, so this is just part 1.
Okay. Chapter 7. Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged.
Yes.
And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again.
Mine thing says, do not pass judgments.
Mm-hmm. The Christian is not to judge hypocritically or self-righteously, as can be seen from the context in verse 5.
Yeah, it's like if you're judging, you will also be judged.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be a hypocrite.
Yeah. And why beholdest?
Beholdest.
Beholdest?
Yeah. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye?
Oh, I see. Okay. So why do you look at the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not notice the beam in your eye?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, like I see. Hypocrisy.
Speck.
Yeah.
I use this spec, okay?
Yeah. Thou hypocrite! First cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye.
Now mine, you missed a behold. It says, and behold.
Behold!
Behold a log in your own eye.
Yeah. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under your feet and turn again and rend you.
Wait, hold up. What verse was that?
That was verse 6.
Okay, verse 6. Okay.
Which is pretty hardcore, man.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, those wild boars with tusks are really, were cut nasty.
So in antiquity, dogs were not among the treasured house pets. They were often half-wild animals that roamed around and for the most part were despised. According to the teacher of 4Q MMT, they were not permitted in the area of the sanctuary because they, quote, eat the bones of the sanctuary when the flesh is still on them. Oh, wow. The prohibition against separating out sacrificial animals with flaws and giving them to the dogs to eat is well known in rabbinic texts. Thus, what is holy is probably meant that has been sacrificed.
Mm-hmm. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and him that knocketh it shall be opened. Wow. Isn't it great how faith healing totally works in 100% of cases?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, because everyone that asks receives it.
Everyone, apparently. Yeah, ask, seek, knock. They have a religious dimension. The words that are used there, ateo, zeteo, and krouo, have religious dimension in Jewish Christian usage. One asks or seeks God. One knocks on the gates of mercy. In the text of the entire section, which speaks of prayer, all three verbs are probably understood as synonyms, although the pair seek and find, in particular, more likely refers originally to knowledge.
Mm. Or, what man is there of you, whom, if his son ask bread, will give him a stone?
Well, wait a minute. If the kid asks the dad for bread and the dad doesn't have any, but he's got a gemstone and gives the kid a gemstone, the gemstone can then be used by the kid to go down and buy a whole pile of bread.
Yeah. You can buy all sorts of stuff if it's a nice enough gemstone.
Yeah.
I
Or
think
bread's
that
very expensive.
I think
good bread.
this calls back to the temptation narrative.
I think it does, yeah.
Where Satan tries to get him to change rocks into bread.
Yeah.
Of course, the metaphor doesn't really carry over.
Not well.
Or if he ask a fish, will he give him a serpent?
Yes.
If ye then, being
It must have been
evil,
done. Yes.
yeah. If ye then, being evil, know how to give good gifts unto your children, how much more shall your Father which is in heaven give good things to them that ask him?
Hopefully a lot more.
Yeah, though it doesn't work in practice.
So
No, I
there's
said
more underlying-
hopefully, you know.
Yeah.
Coming up, lots more underlined text here, by the way.
Okay.
Coming up. Okay.
Therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. So the golden rule.
Yeah. So this is actually kind of interesting here. I mean, without the hold on, what the golden rule? What verse was that? Sorry.
That was verse 12.
That was verse 12. Okay. So on the stuff from before, so verse 7, which was like the start of this this little section here, has a special history that, largely independent of the whole text, builds on the traditional horizon of associations with the verbs seek and find. In Gnosticism, seeking became the central description of Christian existence. The true Gnostic is the one who seeks the invisible Father. By contrast, the church's interpretation emphasizes that Christians are those whose seeking has ended because they have already found. They have found, namely, the basis of faith. The Christian Gnostics, Clement and Origen, what do I call? I don't know if I call them Gnostics.
Well, they're Gnostics in Hermenia,
Okay.
according to Lutz or Luz.
Okay. Because I mean, Origen was like one of the most. What'd you call? Origen a Gnostic. He was one of the most influential theologians of the time. So that's interesting. I mean, maybe he was a Gnostic, but just not as hated as the others. I don't know. Who had to defend themselves against the implicit hostility to theology of the anti-Gnostic church people, tried to relate the seeking to the church's faith. Oh, he was Gnostic to the Roman ladies. Okay.
Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. This sounds like Dr. Seuss.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits.
Bad tree.
Yeah. Damn trees. They deserve the hell of fire.
Wow.
Obviously, they just can't grow the way that I want them to grow.
Now, never mind the fact that the tree might actually have like a fungus, and if you treat it with like copper or something like that, cure the fungus, then it would produce good fruit. I guess.
Or maybe it's just not a fruit-bearing tree.
Right, yeah.
Like, are they saying to cut down every single evergreen? Is that why there are Christmas trees?
Could be. There you go.
Oof.
Conspiracy.
Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils?
I like
and
the
in thy
nasally voice. You're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. And in thy name done many wonderful works, and then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity.
Yeah, you're nothing to me.
And I was curious what that Greek says, and in verse 22, mine says, your name perform many miracles.
For verse 22, you said?
Verse 22, it's wonderful works in the KJV. What does it say in Greek?
All right, let's check. Give me a second. You guys can keep going. I'll check verse 22.
All right.
Okay.
Therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And every one that heareth these sayings of mine, and doeth them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand.
More underlined verses. Okay, go ahead.
And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell.
It looks like it's just like doings.
Doings.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
And great was the fall of it. Now, that's where the words of Jesus stop here, and there's 2 verses at the end, which are narrative.
Okay.
And it came to pass, when Jesus had ended these sayings, the people were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes.
Yeah, so Matthew brings Jesus' discourse to a close more clearly than in 5:1. He emphasizes that the crowds also heard the Sermon on the Mount. It is a disciples' discourse in the sense that the lives of the disciples are to shine in the world as missionary witnesses and are to confront the nations with the commandments.
Except for those people probably way in the back that had a hard time hearing.
Huh?
Yeah,
As
maybe
you
they
saw
heard
in
it
the
wrong.
Life of Brian.
Yeah.
Listen to the cheese makers.
Yes.
So, long show today.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the Sermon on the Mount?
He was very rabbinical. He was doing exactly what he's probably used to doing as a rabbi, is reinterpreting everything, and just putting his own little spin on things. So I guess that is to be expected. Some verses more than others.
Yeah, some of it is fine. Some of it is pretty bad.
Yeah, like the divorce thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And even apparently even looking at someone wrong, it's that's a bad thing too.
Jimmy Carter as president did his whole lust in the heart thing. That was basic because he's a devout Baptist, and he had had to confess that he had committed adultery in his heart.
Oh no!
Nietzsche's complaint about Christianity is that it expects people to feel bad about things that just naturally happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that person was attractive. Oh no, I've committed a sin.
Yeah, right. That's perfectly normal. You're allowed to find people attractive. Even if you're married, you can still find somebody attractive.
That's hot.
Don't cheat on somebody, but you can find people attractive. That's just a human thing.
No, that's cheating, Lawrence.
Apparently.
It's a sin.
Apparently it's adultery.
You committed adultery in your heart, and you made an adulteress of your wife.
Oh yeah, right. If you divorce them, yeah. Apparently that's how that works.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Either way,
temptation of Jesus stuff with Satan.
I was expecting more.
I was expecting a lot more.
Yeah, people talk about it all the time, and it's
it's just kind of lame.
It's very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Satan does much cooler stuff in pseudepigrapha.
He does a lot cooler stuff in Revelation too.
We'll get there.
We will.
Someday.
Someday, yes.
I guess
Allegedly.
it will technically be someday. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have 3 commentaries on Matthew from
Yes.
Hermenia.
Yes.
So what? Is there a commentary for every verse in Revelation? Because we're just adding more and more commentaries from Hermenia per book as we go now, I guess.
Well, so for Revelation, I have a whole bunch of commentaries on that already, so I don't know if I'll need more.
You'll bring them all over,
I'll
right?
bring them all over. There's a lot of them.
The whole table will just be commentaries on Revelation.
Yeah. But that's okay, though, because Revelation's kind of cool.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so Landon, anything you want to shill?
Well, I would just ask people to and have I wish people a happier 2022. Work on our favorite universe channel is still ongoing, but in the meantime, you can check links in the description below and consider becoming a patron or buying T-shirts, or at least sharing this channel with other people.
Yeah.
That sounds
And
good.
follow the James Webb Telescope, because it's doing cool things, and hopefully it will work. So far, everything is fine, and we hope it continues in its good track record, because it would certainly be nice to see the universe in near and mid-infrared in wonderful splendor.
Excellent.
And as for us,
Buy T-shirts. You can buy one. It's pinned. It's going to be pinned.
it should.
Chris is in the process of pinning it. That's the same shirt Landon's wearing that's pinned.
Yeah, you
right
can
there.
get that shirt.
$20.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this one right here. So there you go.
Look at it. It looks great on him.
Yes.
It'll look good on you, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Patreon. You can join the T-shirt giveaway. We did that earlier.
Yeah, we did.
And Landon won.
He did win.
And you could also be on the show. Landon's on the show. He's a patron. You could be on the show as a patron. You could also join the patron hangouts
Yeah,
that we're doing immediately after the show.
Yep.
Like right now.
pretty much.
Okay, bye. Yeah.
No,
Yeah. And
we got a wish list.
yeah, Amazon wish list full of books. Fill up the table with more books. It's already becoming difficult to keep track of everything that's in all
It
the
is,
books.
yes.
But we'll try our best for you.
We give it a real shot.
Yep. And beyond that,
Facebook and Twitter.
Facebook and Twitter, MilwaukeeAtheists@gmail.com. We got to check the email and see
Yeah.
if that person sent their research to us.
I guess, yeah.
Whatever that is.
I'll take a look at it.
Whatever it is.
And also send in Lawrence diss tracks.
Yep. Lawrence diss tracks.
And try to finish that last apocryphal writing for us, remember?
Oh, yeah. The ending of Ahikar's narrative
Yeah.
portion.
We'd
That's
like
right.
your best attempt. Thanks.
Yeah.
So on Friday, we're going to be doing the sayings of Ahikar.
Yep.
And then on Sunday, we'll continue with Matthew.
Yep.
New Hermenia.
Another one. Yeah.
Yep. Is it also by Luz?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. With that being said, that's
We will
see
you on Friday.
and then Sunday.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.